Wait, where am I? There I am.
How's it going? Welcome, welcome.
How do I sound, Chad?
Things going pretty
Hi
well. How are
there.
you? Hey, Jared. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. You're muted there, Luke.
All right, here we go. Uh,
You're back.
how's this? Does this sound good? I just a podcast I did a couple weeks ago uh, came out today, and I'm kind of horrified by my sound now.
Yeah.
Like, I'd been kind of blowing that off because I didn't think it mattered, but no, it sort of does.
So, do you know which mic you're on right now?
I'm using this mic right now. I think, right?
Yeah,
Testing, testing. One, two, three. Testing.
yeah,
That
yeah.
looks
Sounds like it
awesome.
is.
What kind of are y'all? I just started using OBS Studio the other day. I don't have, or I'm actually in Lima, Peru right now, but I don't have one of those fancy mics uh here. But yeah, I want to get a some kind of little rig set up someday like I used to have.
Yeah, they're nice. They're convenient. I didn't really use this while I was traveling for 2 years. They have smaller setups, but I do have like a Zoom H4n, which is basically just like a portable recording studio, and you can plug it in as a mic. So I
Nice.
mean that's what I would use sometimes. The best thing to get though is a sort of mic that has headphones that are physically attached to it, so that way you
Yes.
can hear yourself. Yeah, a lot like the Tascam. Yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Cool.
it just because it's sort of like having a monitor when you're a singer or something. Let's go
You
on,
gonna
John.
you gonna serenade us?
Like this.
Yeah, I like that.
Nice.
Cool.
Kristen, nice to see you. It's been a
Yeah,
while.
yeah, for sure. So everyone here going to Atlanta?
I'm
No.
not. I'm going to Cancun a week later
Oh,
with my
much nice.
wife is with Imagex, so they're going to a retreat, and I'm like, I,
Right.
I don't want to fly out there and then come back and then fly right. It's just so much travel.
Yeah. Oh, tough problems there.
Yeah, yeah.
Cancun. Yeah.
But no, that's just luck of the draw with that one. But you going?
Yeah, I'm presenting, so I
Okay.
better be there.
Oh,
And
this is
thus,
my
while you're
first
here.
Drupal meeting that I've been to, so
Oh,
Nice.
I
Welcome.
know, yeah, thank you. And I know I guess we were going to get into that shortly, but
Yeah.
I see that there's probably some more seasoned people here, some more veterans, so I thought I would just say that starting out.
You're in good company.
yeah,
Well,
going in 21 years in April. So
well,
Right there with you. Right there with you.
don't say
yeah,
numbers like that.
I know. Well, my son's 21 too, so it's like, oh yeah,
My son will be
that's
22.
right.
So yeah,
Crazy.
time flies.
Yeah, for sure.
Soon it'll be 40. Where does the time
Let's
go?
not get ahead of ourselves.
Well, I know we have a couple new faces, so while we're trickling in, I'll probably say this again one more time. But these meetings are recorded partly for code of conduct and partly to share what it is that we're doing here with the rest of the community. It's our contribution, if you will. And for that reason, please, if you're not in the Slack channel, get into the Slack channel. Let me know your Drupal.org username because I want to give everybody credit for participating. It's, our credit system and our community. So just make sure that you share that. Even if you want to private message me, that's totally fine. Uh, there are some notes. I'll put a link to that. So any of the recording will get posted up on YouTube. The notes will have that. I'll mention the recording in our Slack channel afterward. And this also includes our agenda, things like that. So aside from, kind of the points of order and preamble, if you will, um, today's topic is about DrupalCon sessions, and this was partly instigated by Ryan, who isn't here yet, I don't think. He wanted to kind of sneak preview his DrupalCon session, and I think that prompted other people to say, "Hey, I'd like to do that." Last meetup, we talked a little bit about DrupalCon as well as kind of the state of Drupal demand in the market. So kind of a twofer, if you will. And that, I think, led into our idea for this month's topic. We do these meetups every first Wednesday of the month. There is a Google Calendar. Pretty much everything that I can, I just dump into Slack because, well, it's the thing that gets a lot of attention for folks in the community. And until that changes, that's where I'll put that. But without further ado,
Is Slack the
um,
new IRC?
I, I guess. I
That
mean,
is IRC, man.
bulletin boards. I
Dang.
mean, how far you want to go with that? ARPANET?
No, I just mean for the Drupal community. Like when I joined in 2010, IRC had just passed. Like everyone who was I met was like, oh yeah, I learned this. You know, like it was is a thing that was really kind of no longer there by the time I came through. But
But
I feel like
Luke, you're kind of in a sepia tone thing there, so you're really going back in time.
The
You're
theme.
sort of got that vibe going on there with your colors.
yeah,
Need a
Yeah,
big
I
see
big
back.
jug beside you, maybe a shotgun and a Western
Yeah,
hat.
yeah, exactly.
that's the
Yeah,
thing actually.
yeah. I've seen some photos of people doing that. Photo shoots. No more IRC for me. I don't know when I was on there last, gazillion years ago.
Yeah, IRC was one of those things which turned into quite it was more about like just downloading stuff for the longest time. It was no longer really like chat rooms.
Anyway, I hijacked the conversation. Chad, get us back on track, and we'll
No
continue from
worries, no worries. Well, this is a place to network and socialize, so no problem at all. Uh,
Actually, seeing Luke, you like kind of reminded me. Is anyone here gonna be at Bad Camp? Because I saw that it was announced September, right?
I sure hope so.
Late September. Yeah, I assume you're gonna be there.
Yeah. So September 25th and 26th, and hopefully 24th if I can get enough people to do to do trainings.
Are they
Why
still
is that
doing
one
sessions?
called Bad Camp?
Bay Area Drupal.
Mm.
Their logos.
But it's a good camp.
Didn't they
It's
have
just
they had a
run
nice
by
camp?
pirates.
Yeah, I went to Nice Camp, and to be honest, I didn't really like it. It was at the time very poorly organized, so I vowed to never go back.
Not so
It's
nice
good
camp.
to be bad. Okay.
Yeah, so I
Where
don't
is
know.
Well,
Maybe
nice
they've
camp?
turned it around, hopefully.
Where is nice camp?
New York,
New
NY.
City, yeah.
Mhm.
interesting. I don't even see a 2025 Bad Camp website up. Still
No,
the
that's
last year.
that's coming.
Okay.
Well,
Just
Jumping the
announced.
gun here.
Yeah.
I'd like to get to that. I mean, that's close. That's an easy travel from here.
there you go.
Um,
Cool.
so I guess we can kind of chime in when we know things like session selection and all that once we have a website. But good to call that out.
If you don't hear about it, it's my fault since that's my job.
All right. So you are now personally responsible for everything.
I'll
Um,
get you the word.
so I'm just kind of curious of the people here. There may be others who come in a little bit, then that's totally fine. How many people here are giving sessions at DrupalCon coming up? You can either raise your hand or say something or put something in the chat.
Does BOF count?
I mean, if that's something that you're preparing for, sure. Okay, so we've got one, two.
So
There,
yeah, I have like 90% of my slides, and I was hoping to not necessarily present to everybody, but more just kind of walk through them and get feedback on, yeah, just things that they think are missing or are confusing or whatever. But
I've got some
I
time.
don't plan on just like giving you a
Well,
presentation.
that's fine.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
the premise? What's the title of your presentation?
The official title is Launch Your Design System into Hyperdrive with Starshot's Experience Builder.
Yay.
It's a mouthful.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Long URL.
Yeah, it probably is, unless they
So,
truncated it.
so a quick question: why Starshot versus Drupal CMS? Do you feel like it would
It's
be
just catchier,
recognized?
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just when I pitched it, I specifically even put in the notes, I said, I'm still calling it Starshot. So
Well,
just
I mean,
whatever.
it's valid. I was just writing a proposal earlier today, and I was typing something out, and I saw somebody had written, "We did this previous project using Drupal CMS." I'm like, from a few years ago. This is going to screw with people's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
perception.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And technically the initiative is still Starshot. So,
And what state is Experience Builder? And Dries was telling me that he thinks it might be, you know, relatively full-fledged by what, like July or something?
that's their target for a 1.0.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So we'll see, still very, very raw, running into bugs, but it's pretty cool. I have a little short demo
Oh, sweet.
video I
Yeah,
can show as well, which is part of the presentation. So
fantastic.
um so what do you think, Chad? Should I just kind of walk through the slides and get some feedback?
Yeah, yeah.
Or
So the original format that we had was, I think Ryan just wanted to share his presentation, and that's certainly fine to an extent. But if everybody wanted to do that, nobody could do that. So I think kind of a pivot from there is let's just dive into immediate concerns or what it is that you're trying to kind of navigate and go from there. And if we still have time, we can maybe do
Yeah,
little
rip through
rehearsals.
them.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm interested in Experience Builder, man. I'd like to see where the project is, and so
Feel free to share your screen too.
you're definitely,
cool.
in the mix.
Awesome. Yeah, in fact, I might have a demo site up that I can run you through. So I'll skip over the sort of the just intro slides, kind of normal stuff like hi, how are you, whatever.
Mhm.
So the plan is to discuss briefly what design systems are. Hopefully, most of the audience is going to know a bit about that, a little bit about Experience Builder, and then go into more of the sort of SDC, which is single directory component stuff, and then kind of tips and tricks and whatever. And that's the part I still need to flesh out a bit more in the sort of what's next. Um, and Chad, I think you threw in something in chat, so just feel to interrupt me at any point.
Oh, all good. I was just putting the meeting notes for our
Okay.
meetup. No worries. Keep going.
All right, cool. So went through intros and now I'm going to talk a little bit about design systems. So this section is just literally like quick, what is a design system? I'm going to hopefully get some interaction and ask the room, shout out your favorite design system. Okay, so in this room, shout out your favorite design system if you know what a design system is.
Chad UI.
Chad, you.
Now, is that what you mean by a design system, or is that more of a component-based system? Component library.
So I
I
guess
don't really know the difference
Chad
between a
UI
component
is
library.
actual thing.
What?
Chat, I mean, are you making something up when you say
No,
Chad
you don't know
UI?
what Chad UI is? Oh my gosh. I'll put it in the chat for you.
Yeah, throw this in. I want to promote this. It
I should
sounds
know.
great.
Oh my God. It's like, but again, it's pre-built components, and Twig doesn't necessarily support like pre-built component libraries. Right?
Experience Builder will,
Okay.
depending on
So
what there's
this
so
is,
code
you could take a look at
components.
this.
Okay.
Arshad was an engineer at Chapter 3 for 15 years. And while he was at Chapter 3, this was his side project.
Oh,
And he had no idea what was going to happen, but he put it onto GitHub, and within a month, he was top GitHub project, 16 million stars.
oh, you said Chad. I thought you said Chad.
Yeah, me
No,
too.
Chad UI.
Yeah.
I have seen that. I don't really know much about it, but I have seen that name. So that was just
Oh, it's
funny because
really
I was
sweet.
like, Chad UI.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I
Uh,
like that one. I like that one. Let's vote
Okay,
for that one.
yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, component library. Yeah. That's in the realm of
Is
what we
that
do.
what you
Yep.
mean by a design system? Like a component
This is a
library?
piece. It is a piece of yes. It
Okay.
is a piece
Okay.
of the
Thank
system
you.
for sure. Anyone else have a favorite?
I like Stanford's design system, but I haven't seen it actually in like 10 years. So
Okay, cool, awesome.
Google Material Design and
There
also
you go.
Shopify Polaris.
Ah, yes, those are big ones. Very cool. Cool. So just, hopefully there'll be people in the room and they'll shout out some stuff. I'm not going to go over all the details, but I have some sort of, like the evolution of design systems kind of beginning and whatever. I'm probably just call out a few of the items because there's a lot there. And then, as Sarah just said, there's, material, there's some of the early ones in the 2010s that were kind of got us going. And then there's some Drupal ones. There's one being built for Drupal CMS. Maybe it's probably going to have a catchier name, but right now we just call it the default design system. A little bit boring. I should probably check with those
It's on
guys.
brand. It's so
We
on
Yeah.
call
brand.
it the DDS.
Yeah. So that's immediate current team that's working on
You could
that.
call it Galaxy.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Galaxy by
Yeah, then
Meetup.
go with the whole star shot.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Then I started thinking about Galaxy Quest, which is a hilarious movie.
Ooh,
Oh my
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, so I helped along with my team with the Starshot demo design system, which we'll see some slides in a bit. And that's kind of the design system we've been using for testing out Experience Builder. Civic Theme is something that I also work on, and that's actually the base of the Starshot demo. But then there's this whole UI suite implementation, which there's a bunch of different design systems that are built under there that not necessarily compatible with Experience Builder, or at least I need to do a bit more testing. So I'm hoping to do that before I go. So this is an example of some components that you might see in a design system. This particular one is what we used for the Starshot demo design system, which was based on the Drupal rebrand. So we were given a bunch of components to play with. And if just chime in, stop me at any point if anything is confusing or you have questions.
I mean, you say design system, and I'm sure you all know exactly what that is, but I don't really. And I mean, I have
Go back
a
to this one.
bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, and I have, and it's like,
Take a look at that link that I stuck in there.
okay, gotcha.
The one that
Yeah.
says this is the design system created by
Hmm.
chapter 3. That's it,
Yeah,
the pattern
yeah,
lab. So that's
right.
basically what it is. I mean, that's what she's
Okay,
talking about. Those are
okay.
all components.
Well, I mean, she was looking for feedback,
Yep.
and
No, yeah. So
probably,
I
yeah,
glossed over the like definition slide of like
probably most
what
of the
it,
people that show up are gonna know exactly what you're talking about, right?
yeah, maybe 80% or
Yeah.
something you're going to have some
Okay.
idea of what it is. Not, there'll be various levels of stuff just because it's in the title. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's going to be some that don't know anything and some that have made design systems and everything in between. But the idea is to have these reusable
And I
components.
might be at the wrong meeting too, right? So,
No. You're at the
okay.
right meeting.
All right.
Your voice is valuable. So,
Okay.
but yeah, you have these components that the idea is then you could reuse those components on different places in your website so that you have more
Right.
consistency. And also that those components kind of work together well. So you get
Hmm.
that kind of coherent branding, right? And then it just makes you have those components ready. So it makes things faster when you're building stuff. You're, creating new pages, you're doing development. If you want to make a new component, you already have some others that you kind of leverage. You can, like pull in like a button or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so you kind of can think of it from electrical engineering, right? Okay, I'm going to build my board and I'm going to pull in these resistors and these
Yeah,
capacitors,
yeah.
whatever, right? And kind of build something together. You're not starting with, atoms and, not knowing what to do. Like you already have some things to work with, right? Um, so yeah, and then you have, your designer working with your developers and trying to make sure that things are very, coherent between the teams as well. So, and then yeah, so just getting back, so the design system, your designer would design something that looks good has lots of different components that look good. If you have a button like you see here, there's a button. That same button is used in different places. You might have variations of buttons, but they are supposed to, convey whatever the brand is that the designer is going for. Um, but the idea is like this, heading and this heading, they're actually the same font, and they're both heading components, and they're following the same sort of design, right? So um, that's a big part of design system, is really that kind of coherent branding across page and across the whole site, and actually even beyond the website, because you would potentially use those same components if you were building an app for the company or some other like marketing things, like a kiosk banner or whatever. Like you could use it for other, it's not just for websites, but for us, we're just talking about the websites. And then some other aspects of having a design system. Often the designers will use Figma. That's pretty popular. You don't have to use Figma to define what your components are, but that's pretty popular. And then another thing that's popular to use is something called Storybook, where you can go and play with all the different um, design components. And I will
Design
show
system.
you.
I don't know.
I'll show you a storybook just so you can see what I'm talking about. So like so storybook, you can go in and you can actually sorry, I need to do this, I guess. Yeah. You can go in and you can have settings, and then you can change those and then see what it looks like, right? And it'll change kind of as you're doing it. So it kind of gives you a way of interacting with the components without it being on the website. It's just a place where you can go and play with your different design system pieces, and seeing how they're working, and um,
So Storybook is like an interactive style guide.
yeah, exactly how you can think of it. So like maybe you're wondering, what does it look like if if it ends up having a lot of text, how's the wrapping, or
Mhm.
oh, I want to, is it going to look crazy if I have 50 million links on it, or, whatever. So it's a nice place for the developer to work in, where they're not worrying about where it ultimately is going to live, whether it's Drupal or WordPress or somewhere else. Especially if you're using these components across different technologies. Yeah, it just gives you kind of a nice playground for checking stuff out. So those are two very popular things with design systems. So I guess I'll stop there for a minute. So I don't go a lot into design systems because I'm hoping that most people kind of get the idea, get the gist. This is not a design system. It's not mostly focused on design system, and more about how do you take a design system and use it within Experience Builder. So, yeah, so I have a handful of slides, but I'm trying to keep it fairly light. I did tag the talk as intermediate, I think. So at least the beginners will know, okay, well, I might need to brush up on some things before I understand all this stuff. But So
How
I guess
long do you figure it'll take you to get to this point?
to get to this point.
Yeah, like how many did you have it figured out by like minutes or percentages or anything like that?
Oh,
For
you mean how long will it take to get to these slides?
to,
So
to, to get to where you're going to end the intro to design system aspect
yeah,
and get
so
into
my rule,
the
yeah, after having given way too many talks, I my rule of thumb is I average 1 minute per so 45-minute talk, I shoot for 45 slides. And some slides will go faster and some will go slower, and it ends up being about a minute a slide. So, since there was a bunch of intro stuff, that'll probably go pretty fast. So this will probably be a little slower, whatever. But so at this point, I would expect I'll be at around the 18-minute mark ish. Yeah, that's kind of how I go. But so I guess the question is, given that there's some people that didn't know anything about design systems. Um, would you find any other information here useful and not, like, is there some succinct thing that I could provide you that you'd have like, oh, epiphany, like, oh yeah, I get it.
Was there maybe I missed it. I'm sorry. Was there a slide that said the difference between a UI kit and a design system? Maybe just as a definition sort of thing.
I No, I'm a little worried that's going to get a little too much into the weeds because in some ways, you could use a UI kit in a similar manner. It's just that usually a design system, it has the components of a UI kit, but then usually there's kind of more stuff like they're focused on accessibility or they maybe have some governance around it or I don't know. It's a little bit I mean, I certainly can make a note of that of
I mean, to be fair, you did say it was intermediate, so I think that's
yeah, but actually that's not a necessarily a bad idea of having something of like what are sort of similar things to design systems or similar terminology like oh maybe you haven't
Well,
heard
it's
design
like
system but
it's
you've heard
tailored for a
this.
designer, right? Well, more or less, somebody that's a visual person that is trying to put it all together. And then it would have helped me just to get like a general definition up front, and that would have like brought me right there.
Yeah.
Like I said, some of you have probably have a lot more experience with the ecosystem. There's probably going to be one or two people there that don't, which, I mean, are
Yeah.
they, yeah,
No,
is it
that's
real?
good. But I'm wondering if maybe there's like a quick thing that I can show that's kind of
Okay.
like,
Here's the
how about
Tanner, what
if
I'm
you had a visual comparison? Can you present like a slide that has two or three different design systems, so that people would see like, oh, that's the thing that changes.
right, okay. So
I mean, I
visual.
knew what Figma was, so I mean, you probably a lot of maybe some design website designers would relate to. I don't know.
Okay,
It's
actually,
all optional, right? I think it looks like you put a lot of work into what you did, and I'm sure it's great. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to go through it all, nor probably has anybody else here. But
yeah, so but I like your idea, Luke. Maybe it could be a particular type of component, but styled within different design systems. So you get an idea like there's components, but depending on the design system, they can look very different.
I mean, if it had the same content
Yeah,
displayed in
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
two or
The
three
same
different design
content, and
systems.
it'll show like this is, in this design system, it looks like this, but it looks quite different in this one and this one, this one. And so you get idea like it's definitely very branding driven as well. So yeah, I'll definitely
but
take that.
Kristen, I think
Yeah.
the meta point of what you're saying here is that Starshot Experience Builder makes building websites, beautiful websites easier. Let me show you. And you show Experience Builder with a brand system in it. Don't even talk about brand. Sell the sizzle, not the steak, right? So you talk about, hey, listen, Experience Builder builds amazingly beautiful websites. Check out this one, right?
Yeah.
and show it with the um, your design system integrated. You do a demo of a page, fully branded, right? And you say, this is how this is supposed to work. But what makes this work? Well, we have our company design system in here, right? And then all of a sudden, people are really listening, right? Because they just saw it work. They're like, whoa, did she integrate that with Drupal CMS?
Oh, I see. Demo something
Yeah, like
front.
you want to
Okay, that's
sell the
interesting.
sizzle, which is like
Right.
Drupal Experience Builder has has design system integration capability,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Check it out. Look how easy it is to build a beautiful website using Drupal. Now,
And
how
it
did I do this?
Right. Okay. No, I like it. Yeah.
it takes a
Right?
lot of time. I just built a site, and this is one of my first or second site with Drupal, and
Hmm.
it takes a lot of time to get all the buttons to match and everything. And
Yeah.
if you don't like it, then where did I like? You have to go back, and that takes a tremendous amount of time. And if you want to change it, then you're back where you started. Whereas
Well,
your utility could take a lot of that time out of the picture, and you're more looking at like the finished product, what you want to end up with, which is what any designer wants to start out with anyway.
yeah, I think if you start with a cool demo with a beautiful
Yeah.
design system and throw like 5 components onto a page, just whip it together, you know what I mean? And
Yeah, I have something. Yeah.
be like, Experience Builder is this. I think that's compelling, right?
Yeah.
I would stay for the rest of it because I would want to know how you did that.
Yeah.
It's a good segue.
Yeah. Yeah. I like
Yeah.
it. And I do have it, but it's buried
It's
towards the
buried, and now
end.
people
So
are like lost in design system. Like, what is she
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about,
Like
right? The point of
what's
this
that?
thing is like, listen, you integrate your design system into an experience builder, and you can whip pages together that look beautiful and are accessible, and all of these things.
Yeah. So why do you care? Why should you care that you're here? Like, let me show you why.
Yeah, exactly. Like, look at the magic that's been built in Drupal because Drupal has never had that before, right?
Yeah.
And like, I feel like if they're going to show a demo of Experience Builder integrated with the design system, even if it's kind of like, not 100% whatever,
Yeah.
that really shows the potentiality a lot more than doing it like in Claro theme or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And arguably, I think that is the big no code value proposition that Drupal CMS has been barking about to compete with the likes of Squarespace and Wix. I don't think that it's a replacement. I think it's just gaining the attention of our main audience segment now for Drupal CMS, which is CMOs. So I think
I've
this is that
warmed
sizzle
up
you're
to the
talking about.
idea of Drupal CMS over the last since the last time we talked. And I think that if they nail Experience Builder with good demos like this, showing its potentiality, it has a lot of potential, right? Because like Wix is great until you need more, and there is none, right?
Yeah.
All of
Yeah.
these low code, no codes are great until you need more, and there is none. And the whole point behind Drupal CMS is like you're never going to hit that spot because it's just Drupal.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I just worked on a massive migration for a WordPress to Drupal thing using Site Studio from Acquia, and let me just tell you, it was the
Mhm.
worst content manual content entry experience I've ever seen. So I'm kind of curious, what do you have next, Kristen, in your
Is this like
Yeah.
a
Are,
little
are
demo?
you able to see the
Yeah,
video? Yeah.
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 Okay, so I recorded this today, and I don't know if you saw the Dries note from, well, I don't remember if it was in Singapore or not, but in Barcelona. So I helped, and my team helped build the components that you see here that are used within Experience Builder. So these components. So this is a design system, the demo Starshot demo design system. And then these are the components that we built in order to integrate it with Experience Builder. And you can go in and make changes to the, text like I did earlier. Here I deleted a component. Um, I duplicated a component, dragging it around. And so there's things called props and slots, which I talk about in the presentation. But it shows like the whole structure of what's in your page. So if you can go and change stuff. I'm a little hesitant to do a live demo just because, that could go wrong. So I'm leaning towards
Where
having
does your design system come into play in this thing?
everything you see here is from the design system. All of
How
those
does it suck it in there, though?
Experience Builder pulls it in because they're all something called SDC, which is something talks about in the slide. So I guess maybe I should back up. The audience for this are people that are hoping to integrate their design systems with Experience Builder or understand how that works. I would expect them to be somewhat technical because I do talk about some technical concepts in it. So that might give you a little more background. But
Are you demoing that aspect of it, of like pulling in a design system into Experience Builder, or are you starting with the design system already loaded?
well, that is a design system that's in Experience Builder. So I guess you mean like without
Like
anything on
if
the
they have
page?
their own, if they're coming from a place where they have a
That
design system and they'd like to load up Experience Builder with it.
yeah, that's sort of the point of the talk is like if you have a design system, how can you uh map it so that it makes sense, so that Experience Builder can pick it up.
Am I jumping the gun? Is that what you're about to get to in some slides
No,
later?
no, this is actually really useful conversation because I feel like maybe I'm making some assumptions that people aren't necessarily going to understand. So I think what John said earlier, like having some sort of demo, I'm not sure it's this demo, but maybe with a blank canvas, there's nothing there, being more intentional about like, oh, see the stuff on the left, those are components from your design system, and watch, I'm going to start bringing them over. I started with
Make
one
it
that had
all sizzle. Nothing but sizzle on that. Like, this is amazing. Check this out. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Even if it's not 100%, you got to sell that. And I think that, I mean, it looks pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, because at some point you've got like the bones of Drupal and Experience Builder, without all the stuff, and then on the top of you've got the content, which has its own visual look. So I think helping the audience understand what's not content and what's not the infrastructure, and thus is the design system.
I think I follow. Actually, that makes me think. I feel like I need to explain more that Experience Builder is letting you build a page, a flexible page. You put whatever you want, any of the components you put on the page, and you can build whatever you want. I think I need to be more explicit about that because in Drupal there's content types, and that's a different thing. Now there is going to be a way to marry content types with Experience Builder and have some fielded and some flexible and whatever. I don't know how much, maybe that's ends up being, I'm going to have a section at the end that's like kind of things to come. So maybe, let's see, maybe I put
Could
that.
you reference WordPress and Gutenberg and their pattern system since it closely mimics it?
What's it called? Oh, you mean Gutenberg.
Gutenberg, they have a pattern system, which is essentially what you're trying to build here, a collection of reusable components, a whole design system. Gutenberg has long had this established, and I would say most folks in Drupal also have used WordPress as well, and so they might recognize that terminology. Berg and the pattern
Yeah,
system.
pattern system. Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the name of it again, Sarah?
Gutenberg
Yeah, but
and their pattern system, PATTERN, pattern system. She's got it.
Yeah. No, that's good.
All of the big themes like cadence or uh, that's the only one that comes to mind at the moment. They have their whole entire pattern system themselves that add to the base ones of Gutenberg, as well as they have a whole block system. It's very similar, it sounds like.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll take a look. Not some, I mean, I've used WordPress in the past, but it's been a while.
I'll send you a couple links.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Okay. So yeah, so I need to talk, I think, about like what's the point of I mean, I go in, I have a section. Okay, so the structure was, maybe the structure is going to change, but the structure was like an intro, very brief intro to design systems, a brief intro into Experience Builder, and then this thing called SDC, which is single directory components, which is what you need to pull these components into Experience Builder. And that's when it starts to getting more into code and stuff like that. And then after that, I was going to talk about some tips and tricks and kind of what's next, kind of bleeding edge stuff for Experience Builder, which isn't ready now and won't be ready for Atlanta, but like they're doing these code components, which they have made some progress there, like the content type integration, stuff like that. So let me just go
I
back.
didn't know what Experience Builder was either. I just looked it up. I had to plug it in the monitor, but Starshot, I heard about that. I've been busy working on my other Drupal project, and I haven't had a chance to even. I kind of knew what it was, but um, yeah, I mean, Drupal's awesome, right? It just is. And some of you say you have like 20 years experience or whatever, but I really enjoyed it, and especially the ECM module that I saw the other day was really cool. And I saw somebody mentioned something about it on LinkedIn, but I could be happy just sitting here working with Drupal probably for the next 20 years also. I mean, it's just a lot of fun, right? So
For sure.
interrupt, but
No. This is all good stuff. I'm absorbing the different experience levels and trying to figure
well,
out.
it just depends. I mean, in college, right, your professor's always like talking over your head, and you might get a
I don't
little
want to do that.
dizzy. But you might get a little dizzy, but at the end of the day, you're going to figure it out. But it really just depends. You don't want people that are more experienced to get bored if that's who you're talking to. But
Yeah, I
it
mean,
really just depends.
yeah, I mean, definitely more intermediate, but I think peppering it with some stuff that if there are newer people that they can go, oh, okay, I get that piece. Okay, I'm not sure about that one, but like at least get the gist of it. I think that's fine. Um, okay, so then yeah, section that's like, oh, hopefully most of the people in the room will have know about Starshot. Um, Now this one came out of various presentations over the last 6 months. But I'm thinking maybe it doesn't really do things justice at this point. I might, given some of the feedback, maybe have something here that's a little more interesting. I'm not sure exactly what yet, but
So is your idea to basically sell the integration of a design system into Experience Builder to kind of highlight the value of Experience Builder coming up and
yeah.
maybe warm people up with what they're familiar with layout builder, paragraphs, and all that?
Yeah, and this has been the approach because we're talking to an audience of people that a number of people have been in Drupal from some, a few years, 20 years, whatever, and they've probably used Layout Builder. It's in core. They probably have used paragraphs. So trying to now single directory components, not as many people have used, but it is a requirement for kind of the design system approach that I'm talking about. So yeah, so I guess for those that do know about Experience Builder, if you were explaining it to someone who didn't know what a Drupal person that didn't know what Experience Builder was, what would be your pitch to them?
I mean, someone can feel free to explain it to me.
Hi, Mike.
Well, I mean, I think the high level premise of what Experience Builder is to take what you do in the Drupal UI and move it on screen, right? So that you no longer are in a form-based editing system. You're now in a
Visual. Okay.
in a visual front end system, right? A lot like Prismic, I mean, I don't know if guys have played with that, but anyway, so I would say that's what it is. It's like Drupal right now for content editors is primarily a form-based experience, right? And they can do a lot in those forms. They can do all kinds of stuff in those forms, including add styles to paragraphs. There's a million different things you can do, but it's all within the form, which gives it the perception of being very difficult.
Yeah.
Right. Until you learn the form, it is really difficult. Right. But once you learn the form, it can be very efficient. So the meta concept of what Experience Builder is to take that and move it into your design. Right. So you're sitting on top of your design and you can do all this stuff. Move blocks around, add block, however your site is architected, Experience Builder will be bound to that. I don't think that it can create, I don't know, that's where it starts.
Yeah, we can start creating new components. So that is something that's going to be available.
Well, what happens to where does the content of a component that does not have a content type associated with it go?
So they're making it so that you can make components within Experience. No, it's not there yet.
For the ones who get it, the most important part is the one you need now, and the best partner.
That.
So I mean that's the high level, but I think that there's always been Layout Builder's been on deck in the Drupal community for a super long time, and so this problem has been tried to be solved for a long time. But then you always get into complex nits and picks about complex content architecture and a WYSIWYG front end.
Well, too,
does that make sense, Mike?
Layout Builder. I mean, I've seen it there, but especially to somebody that's kind of newer to the ecosystem that hasn't. I mean, if you start installing all these modules and you've never seen any of them, it can start to feel like an alien spaceship or something, I mean, really. But I've tried to kind of stay away from Layout Builder intentionally. I don't really think I needed it, but I'm sure it's useful, maybe. I mean, I haven't had a time yet to sit down and just play with it, which I don't know that I've really needed to.
Well, I think a lot of things come back around to what our community affectionately refers to as the Drupal way. And that I think is a little bit of a subjective statement, but there are things that are a little bit more scalable, things that are a little bit more standardized that other people can build upon. When we look at things like paragraphs, it's very akin to, we always have to kind of like reference to like where Drupal came from and what we originally had through content types and blocks and the fielding system for things, and things like field collections, I think come up a lot for the older Drupal folks. And paragraphs scratched a little bit of an itch in terms of giving structure to something that otherwise wouldn't. In computer science, it'd be like a struct. I have an address that has different pieces to it, and I might have a multi-value field, and I can't do that with a normal field a lot of times. So giving people a little bit more power, paragraphs tried to scratch an itch in this like config, no code sort of way. Layout Builder took a slightly different approach, though, bringing us back a little bit more towards a visual editor, because Paragraphs is not a visual editor. I mean, it's not like Gutenberg. And Layout
Well,
Builder tries to
no.
be.
Yeah.
I mean, like one thing is like, I tend to specialize in accessible sites, and Layout Builder is inherently not the best for ensuring proper page and heading structures. And things are just being moved all over visually, left and right and center, and the one good thing about paragraphs is that it does sort of enforce section after section after section. You can enforce those being like H2 tags, and the sub items being H3s, and just whereas I know my coworkers have managed to get proper heading levels into a bunch of layout builder stuff, but I think it was pretty difficult for them to do so.
You're preaching to the choir about heading levels. That's a
Everybody's
complex
different.
one.
Everybody's different, and everybody's going to need different things at different times for different
That's
projects.
that scalability problem. But I think to kind of bring it back to, I think what Kristen is talking about here. Kristen, did you want to kind of take us through some of your next slides and how you had envisioned this?
Yeah, but I did want to talk a little bit about what Mike just said. It's not covered in the slides, but the
Yeah.
accessibility thing. So I don't know if you're aware, but they did add some accessibility tools into Drupal CMS. So there's a recipe that was added that has editorially, I believe, if I'm remembering right, configured in there. So at least it gives the content editor a heads up. Hey, you did an H1 and then an H3, or, the sort of the standard stuff. So that's good. That coupled with if you have really well done accessible components in your design system, at least that's not going to necessarily solve someone doing the wrong thing, but I think coupled together, it potentially, can solve some of those problems so that people aren't doing silly things. But yeah, so getting back to the slide. So it seemed like, Chad, from what you were saying, for the people familiar with Drupal, this still kind of, gets them thinking, oh, I see. Instead of, it's got a bit of this and a bit of that, but I think something that John said about hitting home, well, maybe just the demo at the beginning, like this is a visual tool for building your page. You don't have to do your paragraphs and them not know what it looks like and all that stuff. So maybe this is still fine as is, but we'll think about that. And depending on the size of the room, I will probably be trying to ask people stuff as I go. I like to do that if it's a small enough and get some feedback. So I'll be like, hey, anyone tried Drupal CMS? Have you tried Experience Builder? Have you contributed to Starshot or blah, blah, blah. And then I have an article that talks about trying it out if people want to try it out. Yeah, so this is really a little more of the visual aspect. So I am starting to wonder if maybe I need to flip things, maybe talk more about Experience Builder first, then maybe about the design, some of the pieces of the design system. I mean, do the demo first, but maybe talk a little bit more about Experience Builder, like why do you care about Experience Builder? Why is this cool? Then a bit about the nuts and bolts of design system, and then going into like, how do you code these? I don't know. I'm just speaking out loud. Yeah, and then this just talks about what you can put into Experience Builder. So SCCs is what is a big chunk of this talk. You can also put certain blocks in, and there's other things. So the coded components, I think, John, you might have mentioned some sort of, I don't remember which UI library you were talking about, but being able to pull in, your existing Tailwind components or something like that. They are working on that. and then the idea was to do the demo. So I need to, maybe there's 2 demos, or maybe there's just the one.
Yeah,
Maybe
just
the
nail
demos
it on the
starting.
Q&A at the end, because the Q&A is where the good stuff comes out, right? Because there'll be a lot of people watching, right? So I think that
Yeah.
get people really thinking about like the potentiality of it.
Right. So I guess for feedback, do people think it's better to start with a blank canvas and start pulling in stuff so there's nothing there? Or start with some structure and add. So this one, started with some structure and I started adding stuff and
It would
changing.
depend on your comfort level, a lot of it, because obviously if you up there and you're already gonna have a lot going on.
It would be a video.
Oh yeah, it's a video. I'm not going to do it.
I
I
think
think
Oh,
we should
oh.
start with a blank page and
Okay.
end up with a fully branded page,
Yeah. Okay.
right? And
I
then
agree.
that leads into, how did I do this? How did Experience do this with my brand?
Yeah.
And you're going to want to do this with your brand. Let's talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And then if you want, you can talk about design. Yeah, then you talk about your design system. The one thing that I think could also be interesting is the interplay between Experience Builder, design system, and SDC, single directory components, right? Because that's a whole new concept within Drupal that allows for flexibility within the template layer for theming attributes to be thrown onto components, right?
I mean, it adds an additional level of complexity on top of everything.
Mike, it's
So I
getting
have a
more and more
whole
complex. That's just Drupal. It's just we're complicated, dude.
But I mean, like Drupal had like
I'm joking with you.
components. They're just called things and had templates, but then
Well, as far as I understood, SDC components were more reusable and flexible than the current articulation of components in Drupal.
you
All right. Let's not bash heads on this, but I think actually we might be burying the lead here, because to get John sizzle, if there's a video associated with this, then that gives you a lot of options. Like if you could create like a super fast motion thing that starts with a blank screen and goes sizzle sizzle.
Yeah, I may need to speed it up a little bit. I don't know. We'll see.
Speed up a lot. Do it 10 times, like however fast the human eye can see.
Oh, I see. That's
a
actually
time
kind of-
lapse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually
like
kind of fun.
And
I
build a
feel-
marketing page. Build like a campaign
Yeah,
landing
yeah, yeah.
page.
And
using
you know,
company
you could be
branding.
talking to it, and you could have like fun music going, and
Oh,
maybe
well, my son composes
Lego spaceships and
music.
stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Luke, you remember my son made that video, right? He does electronic music as well. Maybe he could do some sort of music to it. He'd get a kick out of that.
Yeah, yeah. So you know,
Actually, that's kind of fun. Yeah, okay. I like that.
force them to listen to 2 minutes of dubstep.
Or have Buzz Lightyear saying to infinity and beyond.
Mhm. I mean,
Awesome.
people want to see it working, you know what I mean? And I think the
Yeah.
more that it can be presented with pure sizzle, the steak is going to come in July, but the idea is going to come out now. So that presentation layer, I think, is so important.
I think we lost Chad. Did we? No.
Oh, he's
Oh,
right
no,
there.
he-
Oh, I
Still here.
just. Oh, the way we just have a lot more people now. You're over.
Yeah, they shift
Sorry,
around. No worries.
Okay.
I mean, use the Teletubbies idea. Like for those who like went through having kids during that
Oh
thing.
yeah.
They show a video, and then they stop it, and then they show the exact same video again, which seems nuts until you realize that like kids can, but like adults aren't that different. So like preview it first, or you know, if you want a more, you know, there's oh crap, what's the world's most famous movie? The one about newspaper
I'm not
publisher,
good. Oh,
Rosebud. What's that called?
I don't
None
know.
of us got it.
I don't remember.
Citizen Kane. That's what
Citizen Kane. That's it.
DK
So-
just posted that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Citizen Kane totally does that, right? Like the first, 20 minutes is like this fast thing life of Kane, and then the whole movie's like does it again. So you could, do a 2 minute like here's how you
Wow. Yeah,
use
this is
thing.
very deep in
You know,
art.
and then what you need to do is you need to blow out the flexibility of SDC architecture, like how that connects to your front end now, right? And what you can pass to it. Because I think they're doing all kinds of stuff within SDC, including like being able to pull in JavaScript and
Oh
all
yeah,
that kind of stuff, right?
all
So
sorts
in
of stuff. Yep.
into so then you could be like, if people are out there, you could integrate libraries like, you know, Shad UI or whatever into SDC components.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty big opportunity for somebody to do that, actually.
If you can sell the story that you can get the power of SDC without the complexity that Mike was worried about there, then you've got it, right? You're like, look,
Well, you got to
this
pre-build
new
it.
powerful thing,
You
drag and
need
drop.
SDC component libraries built just for Drupal.
But
Do
yeah,
we have that?
there are
Oh, they don't
there
have that.
are there
Oh,
are there are.
only sell things you have.
Show me an
Um.
SDC component library. I want to see one.
Oh. Yeah. There are a few. Not like I haven't
Go for it,
tested. Like
Sarah.
there's
Do
a
it.
bunch of UI suite ones. I have not. I started trying to test those with Drupal CMS and things didn't go well. So I was going to try to do with vanilla Drupal, but
Maybe that's how
um,
we reach into other communities. You know what I mean? Because like right now, you know, the way that we do things in Drupal are still very Drupally, right? But there's this opportunity now to say, yeah, they're pretty Drupally, but look what we've done. Now we have component libraries and we have a component layout builder. So the opportunity to build those libraries using SDC to be reusable open source libraries for Drupal that are highly detailed, right? Um, I think that's really cool. And most of them are already built. I just think it's more of a transposition of something that's already out there, right? Um, that's when like this begins to make sense, I think, to people like who are not in our community where the power of Drupal is, because like there's been some rumbling about WordPress and yada yada yada, all this stuff, right? So Drupal has like this opportunity right now to be like, yeah, you know, we use modern component libraries within this extremely powerful, flexible CMS system, right?
yeah. Um,
I just think there's a lot of opportunity there, right, for the for the community to do something really cool. Like Shad UI literally was he built that on his free time, man. Like he
yeah. Yeah.
did it.
Well, Civic Theme, which is one that I've worked with, that is actually built outside the Drupal ecosystem and
Mm-hmm.
pulled in so that you can have different implementations. Material has different
Mm-hmm.
implementations. Carbon does.
It'd be
You'll
really cool if they could have a way of you just like importing your system automatically.
Well, that's what we're playing on
Creates
with playing with
components, does the whole nine
AI.
yards, right?
Yeah. That's actually something that we're working on. The AI teams are working on is
Mm-hmm.
pulling
But
in stuff.
I don't know how simple you're going to be able to make it because somebody's going to have to maintain this stuff anyway, right? I mean,
Well, that's a community, man. 50,000 developers. I'm not kidding about
yeah,
that.
I guess if you have the money, then yeah,
Ah, it's
sure.
all
Why
free,
not?
man. Everybody here
Yeah.
doing this work for free. No, I'm
Well, I
serious.
mean,
Like
as far
all of
as
the
the
work that you're
individual,
hearing about what
yeah.
Christian is doing and everybody, like the contribution back to the actual project. You know what I mean? That's all free
But
work.
the business owner that has the website,
Yeah.
they're
There's an
they're going
opportunity.
to have somebody maintain their Drupal installation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure they have the money, or maybe, but you know. Um, so how simple can you make it to where you're going to end up getting people that don't know anything about HTML trying to build these sites? But maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
Well, I think the
Goal.
point it was made in Barcelona that, many people who manage Drupal sites are not technical people at all, but they have to do stuff that's kind of basic, like use the brand, build a landing page, use the brand, build an event page, use the brand, do this, right? Then, so I think they're really trying to poke at the people who have to use it as a tool, right? And it's always never been seen as a tool that can really be used easily. So this makes it a lot easier, especially if it's very structured. Like Kristen's going to show here's how you build a brand page using your design system. Glunk, glunk,
Sure.
glunk,
Yeah, it's great. I mean,
right?
honestly, I think a lot
Yeah.
of people don't know, like you said, there's different options, but they don't know which one to select. And
Yeah.
that was one thing I was faced with, but coming from the background I have, I think I made the right decision, which I see a lot of people, my friends and things that I tried to advise for one way or the other, but I think now they're mostly dissatisfied with the choice that they made.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've been jotting down notes as we go, and I may rewatch this whole thing as well. So the plan was to go in more into the nuts and bolts into SDC. What are components? What are SDC components or SDCs? And then again, pinging the room, who's played with them, who's worked with these, da da da. And then I'm actually going to start getting into code and explaining the types of things that you can do. So, nuts and bolts of some of that. So, kind of the structure of how you make these components. And there's concept of props versus slots and kind of explaining what that is. And I'm going to go into props versus slots. Going in because it's actually a very important thing to understand when you're translating your design system components into SDCs. And then I'm actually going to go through an example and say, okay, here's your example. Here's a component. And you are going to get to decide how you want to implement this component in SDC. And I'm actually going to give you 3 examples of how you could, in principle, do it. Example 1 is everything's a prop. Just means that this title, this blurb of text, each of these links, you're explicitly having the person type in each thing in one form, and I'll show in a minute. Option 2, the title is a prop, and the rest of it is a slot, which means you can put whatever you decide you want to put in there. And option 3 is a combination. And I've seen all of these done, and they have pros and cons. So the plan was to talk about, okay, here's an example of props only, here's a component, and these are the different props that go into this component. It shows 2 different color schemes for the component because you can add things you could add props that actually change how your component looks if you want. So that's a nice thing if you have different like dark theme, light theme, for example. Or if you want to add extra padding or you want to center things or whatever, you can add in some of that into your component if you want to as props. And then you'll have the things that actually show up on the page, like the text and the link text and all that. So that's one way to do it. And then it just highlights those are the props that are showing up. Option 2 is you have a title and then you have just a big open slot that you can put anything you want into. And that gives you a lot of flexibility, maybe too much flexibility, but it gives you a lot, right? So you still have some structure because you have the title, you have this kind of branding with like the little colored bar on the side that sort of lets your call out. But you're basically telling the person who's using the component, I don't know what you want to put in there. Have fun, go and throw some stuff inside. So here's two examples of, someone who used that component. The first one looks very similar to the last thing where it's pretty closely matched to what we did before, where it was just a title, some text, and then a couple buttons. But then someone else decided to do something different and throw in a bunch of cards, with icons in them and some other things. So that's like a much more flexible type of component. And then this just shows that these are props, the red and the purple are the slot, which basically means a free for all. You can do what you want. And then I talk about having this sort of combination, and that I've seen done as well, where you intermix props and slots so that you can stick something you don't know what they want to stick in different places throughout the page. So that one's like the red or the props that are defined, specifically defined. Think of them as like just predefined information. And then the purple are the slots where someone could put whatever they want in there. And my plan was to have a video explain, actually using kind of the different models. Maybe that would be more useful than having the slides. But yeah, so I don't know. But that's actually, there's a lot of slides for this, but it's actually a really, really important aspect of designing the SDCs for your design system, to understand when you might use a prop versus a slot and kind of the trade-offs in terms of usability. So I don't know. Definitely open to feedback on approach, videos, examples.
It's very cool. I mean, it's like Prismic. I mean, you've heard, Prismic was one of the things they were looking at as an editorial idea to put into Drupal. And I think what they did is they looked at Prismic and they're like, yeah, we can do that. You know what I mean? Because the slots, I was playing with it all day today, and that idea of slots is a core concept within Prismic, right? You have a slot, you could put anything in it, you know what I mean? So I think they're trying to get to the level of sophistication that this SaaS product is at, for a front end for Drupal, which, man, I hope they do, because it's darn cool.
So for front enders, slots is actually a known thing.
Okay.
Props and slots and all that. I mean, so I think yeah, they'll, or at least similar concepts. I mean, they actually specifically use slots for stuff. I am not actually a front. I mean, I've helped build some of this stuff, but I'm not really a front end developer anymore. So I go in and I do a lot of the metadata, and I can tweak the CSS or whatever, but and the twig is fine, but yeah, CSS isn't really my thing anymore. So yeah, I think the concepts for front end people, I think it'll be very familiar. For others, maybe not so much. But what about videos or other ways of trying to understand this concept better?
So is there going to be all three options in the final product, or you're asking to select which one to choose for the final product?
No, it's an excellent question. Yeah, so I'm giving 3 end products you could do. You wouldn't actually include all 3 of those in your design, in your
but it could be either
your
one.
theme. You would pick an approach, and so
That
that's
sounds good.
yeah. So I haven't finished completely. So I was going to talk about like when would you use one approach versus another approach. So I want to talk about that. And
I mean, none of this is new. Like, this is what we've been doing with paragraphs. Like, a paragraph field is, the slots, and then the other fields are the props. And then sometimes you have, sub paragraphs, which are slots underneath it. So I mean, it's just different terminology, but it's the same thing we've been building already.
Yeah, okay. So that's good. So it feels fairly familiar from more of a front end person kind of doing that kind of stuff. Or someone that's used those technologies. Okay, that's good. Yeah, so I guess so then yeah, I don't actually have that many more slides because I was hoping to talk to everybody like to find out what are the things you're wondering about. Like if you had to go and make a Drupal theme with components that worked with Experience Builder, assuming you had enough skills that you felt like you could do that, like what would you want to know to get an idea of how to make it work? How do you, or I guess John, you're focused more on like getting them excited and getting them pumped to want to do it, which is
And
great.
showing that it can be done,
And
right?
yeah, and
Like
that it is doable.
that's
Yeah,
the issue. It's not just vaporware, right?
right.
Like you can do this, right? So if you wanted to build a homepage using your pattern library, and I think this is where people may have a slight quick disconnect, right? Because like a lot of people are like, well, I don't have a pattern library. Like uh, I don't have that. What happens then, right? Like or
Well, they can use one of the ones that are,
right. So
the default designs and whatever, right? I
yeah,
mean,
so you would point that out. So you can use this, but maybe you have that quick discussion about what a design system is, which is just an organization of the visual aspects and components of your website, right? And then, the meta purpose of this thing is to be able to integrate the styles and colors into components, and components are pieces of your website. And then, like a block builder, put them together.
I,
right.
I think from my perspective, and not to disagree with what you're saying there,
Yeah,
John.
I know, totally.
I think my perspective is always websites are meant to serve an audience, and one of those audiences is the people who maintain the website. And far too often, those people aren't developers. And meanwhile, a lot of the people building the website are developers. We're very familiar with this stuff. So for us, what's intuitive to us is definitely not intuitive to that audience, the audience of the content manager. So I think the thing that I want to kind of ripple through is I'm not really sure what type of audience would be at this presentation, speaking of audience, but I would imagine that they would still want to hear, will this make my life easier because it will make my client's life or my department's life or whoever's life easier managing this website than it currently is? Because otherwise we get stuck in this loop of we build a website, the developer feels like it's easy enough, and it's these clunky sort of tools where they know it well enough because they've been spending months under the hood tinkering around with this thing. But if it's so intuitive that you can put it in front of grandma and she can figure
Well,
out how to put together a page with it, I think that's the sizzle that I'd love to see
yeah.
actually shine through.
But I do think, to be honest, Drupal has always been used to build content management tools for teams, right? Like, I mean, we have Drupal being used by 30 or 40 editors all day long in a hyper customized workflow environment that really only Drupal could do, right? Um, and so this thing is dependent upon your strategy and your content architecture. And I think that's where it could get a little willy-nilly. Like if it's just putting things together, that's not going to work, right? Drupal has always been a content architecture platform. And for this thing to be what you just described, Chad, it takes a lot of content architecture, a lot of thought into that system. That's not an out of the box thing. It needs to
Yeah.
be configured and thought about like, okay, what does a tool like this actually look like? Right. And what do my designs, components, and workflows look like? Right. So I think there's opportunity there for Drupal shops potentially to use this thing in a way to build more powerful tools for their clients. Right. Like just stuff that people already have. But to do it super good, you need to have great content architecture. You need to have a solid, non-changing design system, right? From the get-go. There's certain things that just have to be in place to make it successful. Same
But
as
like that's the hard part. Like that's what I
exactly.
spend like when I'm building a Drupal site, I'm spending like 90% of my time architecting that stuff and talking with clients and designers and figuring out what components there need to be and what's like,
Mhm.
content types and things like that. The actual building stuff is much less time than figuring out what exactly needs to be
Mhm.
built. So I mean it's I
I
worry
mean,
about a lot of this
the
and stuff is
system
like, wow, you could
success
build it
is,
real quick, but
yeah, I
like
mean, the
it
system
assumes
success
you
is
have yeah.
predicated by your planning. If you don't plan, just like on a normal Drupal site, it's going to turn into a hodgepodge of pages and templates.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think going back to what Chad was, I agree, but I think going back to what you're saying, Chad, yeah, a lot of us are very nerdy, and I mean that in the most loving way,
Yeah.
myself included. Oh, I can make a component that does this and does that and whatever. Like we made some interesting components in the demo design system, where like you can flip, like you have a card and you can flip the orientation, and you can actually like change completely what it looks like and stuff. And I'm thinking, it's cool, but maybe this is confusing. Like, is
Yeah.
this the right thing for the end user? Like, so this, maybe it's not. Maybe I really do want to have two cards and that's okay, right? So that goes back to the content architecture thing. Like, we have to not just do it because it's cool and like super flexible and you can do anything and it's my Swiss Army knife component because I've
Some
made,
constraints. Yeah.
yeah, have some constraints of like, okay, and that's kind of the point of this section is like, you could go super flexible or you can go very structured. And sometimes you need some components that are more flexible and you need some that are more structured. And there's reasons why and there's trade-offs. But the end goal really is what you were saying, Chad. We want the end user to be able to use this without having to think too much.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're all saying something that's important. There's this like Goldilocks, if you will, where we're trying to cater to complexity while at the same time be not the like you open a lot of these open source apps of yore, if you will, these things that compare to LibreOffice versus Microsoft Office or something like that. There's a certain degree of polish to a lot of proprietary applications that a lot of times you don't see in open source. I don't think that's this universal truth. It's just open source tends to come from people's spare time or something along those lines. So they don't get that level of polish that an Apple product would really get because they don't have that sort of funding. But I think where you start to really touch people is when something feels clean, feels easy, but still flexible and powerful, like what John was saying, and thoughtful, like what Mike was saying with the design system. I think that's this Goldilocks era.
Yeah. Actually, I like the Goldilocks analogy, actually.
Yeah, too. I mean, you could write say you're going to give a presentation and you've got it listed as a member. You flip the button for a member and you share it with your team, and then you're in your car on the way to deliver your speech and you flip it to public, and then it's just Drupal is so well situated for business, and it's all open source, like you pointed out. I mean, it's a great product. I mean, I'm really impressed with it, and it's been great. I mean, when I started these projects, I picked it out, and um, I wasn't really sure how I was going to get to the end result, but I'm very satisfied with the journey, right? I mean, not even really what I've accomplished. It's just been the journey has been very satisfying. Too, like with your product, you can get a lot of people probably in high school or whatever, get them, into computer science, working with some code and things like that. Some things that probably a lot of them have always wanted to do, and they just have never really had the opportunity. And Drupal is already probably a little intimidating, but you're kind of making it a little more easier.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
new initiative for that called the IXP, or the Inexperience Initiative, specifically for that. This is
Yeah.
great, Kristen. I really think you've got something solid here, and it's really well timed.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still, so I guess we have a Slack channel for I don't know if everyone's in the Slack channel, but if you think of anything specifically, like, what do you want to know? Like, I'm assuming you'll want to know like what's coming down the pipe for Experience Builder. I'm not going to go into a lot of that because there's going to be an Experience Builder talk. So it'd be more like just some bullets, like CK editor integration and, some of that kind of stuff. I'm not going to, belabor it, but yeah. So if you think of anything that would be you'd like demoed, or something specific about Experience Builder that you're particularly interested in, then yeah, let me know. But yeah, I wrote a bunch of notes, so that was very, very helpful. Thank you.
I'd like to show something if anyone has 2 minutes.
Yeah, go for it.
Just to defend the status quo and what paragraphs can do without all the fancy extra things.
Oh, I'm a big paragraphs fan. I've used
Yeah.
Oh, believe
forever.
me, dude. We build like the epic paragraph editorial.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so we just finished launching this site, which is fun. It's a health website for Multnomah County, which is basically Portland. And basically paragraphs use that. And I tweaked the edit form a bit to make it more friendly and provide the experience that people are sort of expecting, to basically have it be highlight the previews and remove some of the Chrome so that you could just go in here and preview things, then just click edit and have the forms and stuff like that. And Paragraphs already has a pretty nice drag and drop interface already built into it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like a lot of the pieces are sort of almost here already that we're sort of talking about, and that's kind of drives me crazy because a lot of the stuff they're talking about, like we can already do. Like, we have paragraphs, we have sub paragraphs. This is a tile section. Like, each, we've got a slots, and you put these, things in the slots, and drop in. Like switch around. Oh, if the alternate style, and then that's that. Now it's blue and on the other side. So it's I think a better user experience without too many bells and whistles and without letting the users go crazy. Because like the problem is like a lot of the design system is that you sort of need to ensure that they follow it and can't just throw things everywhere.
Yeah.
So, anyways, this is what I've managed to do with just basically paragraphs.
That's beautiful, Mike. I really like that. You did a
Yeah.
great job on that.
Yeah, this is great. I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of bad implementations.
I guess
think-
my
that's
feedback would be that like we're so technical that when we look at that, we're just like, boom, we pick it up instantly, right? But
you see the section, you click edit, and then you edit the section. So
yeah, I just think that like, how would you add a new section or take the, you know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah, I mean, you do still have to add banner section to create a banner section, so it is at the bottom instead of in the side.
There's still some like Drupaliness to it.
Yeah, oh no, because it's default paragraphs. I just hid some Chrome around stuff. So I mean, this is I have a module that's hiding the drag and drop interface, the default Drupal one, but like that's it. Other than that, it's just Drupal. Like, there's nothing new here other than some hidden lines.
It's
and
also kind of a slice based.
Also what?
Right, so it's all based on slices. So if you go,
oh yeah, because again, that gets back to the accessibility portion of it, where like
I'm not
I specifically try to keep users from putting things next to each other because it's easy for desktop people, but then it's hard to get them to consider screen reader users and having to think things through in the sections. Like we did some other stuff with just like automatic like jump sections and things just so that they could see like, oh, these are the sections on your page. Like, these are all the H2s of the things. It's just created automatically, based on.
It's a real nice tool, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. He built
Yeah.
them a really nice tool for their design system. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think we've probably all had clients that have come to us, especially if they're like a little resistant to Drupal and say something like, "Oh, I hate Drupal. It's just such a bad experience." And I always tell people that's usually because of the implementation. Drupal is very malleable, and one Drupal site's, management interface is going to be very different than another. And I think you're demonstrating that really well here, Mike.
I mean, I think the thing is, and this has been driving me crazy for literally decades now. People are constantly like, "Oh yeah, Drupal is a bad editing experience," and that's just because like the people building the site never bothered configuring it, like just tweaking it, like designing it. Like Drupal has the ability to use like the front end form or the front end theme for the node edit forms. Like why not style the theme to use the node edit form so everything looks like they look? And there's this a little extra work goes a long way, and I just feel like like 90 something percent of people's problems with using Drupal is just that like everyone does the front end, everyone like the public focused side of the design. It takes a lot more precedence than the editor focused. And if people just give even a little bit of thought into how the editors are using it, I think it goes a long distance.
I would love to see a test, and this is just complete fantasy at this point. I would love to see a test of folks taking different interfaces, maybe different Drupal sites, maybe different like layout builder versus paragraphs, that sort of thing, and be given a challenge to create a landing page, all the exact same landing page, and just time them, see how long it takes them to actually put it together.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that because there was actually it's not quite the same thing, but it's sort of the game show. They did one for I think that was in Barcelona, DrupalCon Barcelona for Civic theme. It was the same design system, but each they had three contestants and each person had to build. They gave them just sort of a brief and said, okay, build a page that is for this, and then each one did it, and then they kind of judged them at the end. But I like your idea of actually giving them different tools. We thought if we almost tried to get it to so people could use Experience Builder or the other way, which was paragraphs. But Experience Builder wasn't ready in time. But yeah, that would be really cool. Be like, here's a paragraphs one, here's a layout builder one, here's a Experience Builder one. All right, go put
That's
time.
why I wish more of this was like hashed out in contrib before we start throwing it into core. Like, if you can't even get it working in the contrib module first, like why are you talking about putting it into core? You haven't built it yet, but you're already saying we should put it in core, which is kind of antithetical to Drupal, where normally people would build something, people would try using it and say, yes, this is good. And then if you get like 90% of the people using it, you're like, okay, it goes in core. Whereas like now it's just like, oh, we're going to design something in core to begin with. And, no one's used
Experience
it.
Builder's not core though. That's core.
Now it's Drupal CMS, which yes,
Well,
again,
but
it's
that's
not
not
Drupal.
that's not core either.
Yeah, you're right. But it's
I'll give you a little interesting tidbit. My largest enterprise class clients, my largest ones, would never ever use a layout builder for their content team.
Why?
All three of them, and they said no, we're not going to do it. And I was surprised because I was like, oh, I'm going to hit them up. I got this cool stuff that I can work with. And they were like, yeah, no thanks. Which I found quite interesting because they're very used to not being associated with the design or layout. They're content editors.
That's document outline sort of thing. But is that what they said, or did they say exactly why?
They're content editors. They got nothing. They don't want anything to do with the design.
Okay,
They don't
not
want
their
to
wheelhouse.
on the design. They want to go find their piece of content, edit it. They want to go in, add their piece of content, edit it, submit it, and know that through the tool, it will be published all over the website. They don't even have to think about it.
That's a level of what we could call content strategy and design maturity that most organizations don't really have, though.
Well, I don't know if it's
for better or worse,
school or new school, right? But if you do think about it, right, it depends on what kind of website you have. If you have like a quick flying marketing website, maybe that's good. But if you have like a, an old school content, website with 20, 25 editors on it, I don't know if they would use that. We asked our three largest clients, and they're big. Like they were like, nah, we're good. They're used to like SharePoint and all these interfaces, right?
Yeah.
And so when it starts to get clicky on the actual design, they're like,
Well, you also face some accessibility challenges when you have a very visual editor.
Mhm.
That brings it something, which doesn't mean that there aren't solutions for that. It does present that challenge.
So the way I visualize this thing is like an add-on to a large corporate site, right? You would make Experience Builder an add-on, and that add-on would be configured with a design system and components that only allowed people to build, within that component library, and they could whip out things like campaign pages, event pages. They would have their own URL. They could do it in 10 minutes. It would look great. It never is out of, it's never not accessible. They could turn it on, they could turn it off. It's like I could see it being an add-on,
And I
right?
could, and is that akin to, correct me if I'm wrong, is that akin to, I make a content type, say, event, where there are dedicated fields and structure, and Layout Builder has, just as an example of a tool, Layout Builder has the idea of templates that can work directly with that content type. You fill in your fields, you're done. But if you want to override it, you technically can. So that add-on idea that you have is present.
That's
Yeah,
what
but
they're
it'll
gonna
have like the
do.
universal header footer, the
Yeah.
font, colors. Let's say you
Yeah.
put in a text box. Let's say you put in a slider image. You put
Always
in
on brand. Yeah.
always on brand. It's like drag and drop. It's done. It's formatted, and they have a unique URL, right? And so I think that is where the concept goes. Because, like, at first, I sort of found it to be ridiculous that Drupal would consider itself as a low code, no code platform. That's ridiculous, right? But I don't know if that's necessary. Now that I've had plenty of time to think about it, I don't think that's the angle, and I don't think that's the way shops should look at it. Shops should look at it like, we can add this to your system and then all of a sudden empower teams to do things that they have not been able to do before. And those systems would be architected and built by shops.
I think you broaden your audience, and when I say audience, I mean business audience, for Drupal beyond just your enterprise clients, which Drupal started to really lean into over the past decade, is this idea of let's get the enterprise clients, but it almost abandons the clients that really ended up on WordPress for the most part. And I think you see that a little bit in the add-on, the module, the plugin marketplace, if you will. When you look at WordPress, it's like if you need a solution for something, somebody's made a plugin. It might not be the greatest, but it exists.
Yeah.
That's gone away a little bit from the Drupal um, ecosystem to a small extent, where you have a lot more enterprise focus. So people are more focused on APIs and large standard things, and then everything else tends to be a little bit more customized. So if I wanted to stand up a restaurant site with my own POS system, I could probably do that faster in WordPress than I could in Drupal. I'm completely speculating here, but that's the audience shift that I'm talking about. Is a lot of people aren't thinking of Drupal when it comes to, I just want a website for my restaurant. They may think of WordPress, certainly Squarespace or Wix, but that's the audience breadth I think that Drupal has the potential to reach again.
I mean, I think there's a huge opportunity right now. The WordPress community is risky,
Yeah.
right? Just due to governance issues. And I think that what could happen is a rich ecosystem of well-built recipes. Recipes could solve like that problem of like, I want a restaurant website. What do
Yeah.
I do? Well, really, you need like 9 million modules and all this crap, right? A recipe just zings it together for you. You try it out, you like it, you don't like it, right?
Yep.
I think recipes is a strong contender to make, because recipes is not a install profile and it's not a configuration either. It's just like an overlay,
Mhm.
right? On off. That's kind
Yeah.
of awesome. So hopefully Drupal community, and I think this will happen, they will start to build recipes for everything. Chapter 3 is already thinking about recipes that we can build that will be awesome. And just like, boom, you install the recipe, it does the work, right? Experience Builder, I think, is only a piece of Drupal CMS. It's the sizzle, quite honestly. It is. It's the sizzle. It's not the steak of the program, man. But I totally understand its value. So,
Yeah. And then going back a little bit to the structured data versus the flexible content, you will be, so the plan, it's not in there now, but is that you could have an event content type and it can also be married, you can say which of them you want to be fixed and be where they want to be. And then you can have parts of the page that are flexible that can be pulled in with Experience Builder. So you're going to get the marriage of
like
the,
field by field, right? Or
yes, section,
grouping or
kind of
whatever.
section
Yeah.
by section. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I think that's a pretty tight presentation of how to make Drupal better for large organizations, right? Because large organizations obviously have to solve this problem all the time. In terms of it being for first time users, that's going to be up to the providers, right? The SaaS providers that are going to come out because they're going to be this is going to be offered as a SaaS hosting platform provider, and people are going to be like, "Wow, I built this on Drupal on this platform. It was great. Now I want to go larger or whatever." So I think getting that medium user depends on how well that product is presented on a hosting from a hosting platform side. It's got to be like one click, boom, you're done. Blink, blink, you're ready to go. Nothing else, right? And I think that there are companies out there working on this right now.
yep. Yep, for sure.
What about just trying to advertise more to like the colleges and things like that about what Drupal is and what it can do for them? Because I know my son's graduating this year, and I don't know this, but I think there's probably a lot of people out there that don't even know what it is.
Well, I can answer that question. Drupal community is built up of a group of crazy evangelists that go out just because they love it and they tell people about it and they run events and they do things. Everyone in this room has been doing that for like career for 20 years. It just like for free, just an evangelist, you know what I mean, of an idea. So that's how you would get people to know. You, Jared, would go and start a Drupal user group at your kid's college and you wouldn't know what you were talking about, but they wouldn't know either. And you would just be like, Drupal's amazing. We should check it out and see what you can build,
Hey,
right?
there you go. Right.
Seriously. That's how it all started, man. This is
Well,
open
I
source
think you've
project.
already got the products that you already have is rock solid. I mean, because everybody's worried about like how do we make it like, but you've already got like something tremendously powerful.
No one here would even think of disagreeing with that. The problem is perception is 9/10 of the law, right? And so when your perception is you're difficult, complex, or whatever, even if you're powerful, you need to do something to overcome that perception to be like, actually, no, we're easy to use, but powerful under the hood, hot as a pistol, but cool inside kind of thing, right? So I think that's what they're trying to do with this. Like, they need to do that because there's so many competitors just chewing the bottom out of Drupal right now that, it's a strategic move. They have to.
I
I
mean,
mean,
again, I'll say it
what
again
would
that
be
like,
one competitor? I mean, what's one competitor?
There's so many of them.
I don't
There's
see
so
anybody
many.
being able to compete, honestly. And I've spent probably about 15 years in hardware and software troubleshooting, and then I've spent about 10 years in 3D design with 2D and 3D design, and then I did my electrical degree. But I really think that the product is solid.
I mean, I think kids these days don't have an appreciation for structured content. They just want to just throw things
It
everywhere, and they
Drupal,
just
goes
don't
into
want
the
to.
larger meta discussion. Like a lot of us, I've been in Drupal now for 22 years, right? 22 years ago, when I started, websites were hot shit. and your whole persona online was predicated by your website, man. Like that's why we had content strategy. That's why we had killer design. That's why CMSs were made. It was like because website was the main communication device, the main marketing channel. You get to know me through my website. And that's evolved. And I think that right now, what we're seeing is an evolution where perhaps the main website is not the main channel into a business any longer, right? So they're like, why should I spend tons of money on a website when really my Instagram, all these other channels that I don't even know about are actually bringing in all the revenue, right? Because the younger generation, we're all getting old. I'm getting old, right? Uh, we're all getting old. Our kids are graduating from college. They are the new leaders. Ask them, do they go to websites to learn deeply about a business? Hell
I
no,
think the AI stuff is really going to change
right?
everything, right?
So we're seeing a business slowdown within our Drupal community and within the CMS community in general. And I've been trying to evaluate reasons, right? Like, what is the market shift? You can't just blame it all on AI, can't blame it just all on Drupal market perception, can't blame it all on Donald Trump. It's not that, right? It's that websites have always been this complex, expensive entity within the marketing budget. And when new, younger CMOs come in and look at the channels that are bringing in the money, it's not the website anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a million other things. That's where DXP comes from, digital experience platform, right? They're trying all these methods to keep people on the website when the reality is that business is being done on Instagram or on other platforms. Who knows? There's so many of them now, right? Like, so I don't know. I have this, it's a more of a meta conversation than, for particularly for just Drupal. It's more
Maybe I'm
about
getting
like,
old, right?
what is the evolution of our industry? Where is the evolution of our industry really growing? We want it just to be easier and easier and easier to build a website. Awesome. But is that really the answer to adoption? Or is it that just websites in general are not the main channel and what people are really looking for? I don't know. See, that's where I stop. I'm like, okay, well, what are they really looking for then? What would be the evolution?
I, I
And
try to I
yeah,
try to look at it, I
yeah,
think there's some credence to what you're saying there, John. Is you meet people where they are, right?
yeah.
And then you build affordances based around that. But I think from the structured content standpoint or from the information system standpoint, it's all a matter of how is that information meant to be used and how are people attempting to use that and try to like build a bridge between those with whether it's a website, an app, Instagram presence, whatever the tool might be for conveying that information. Some information super simple. Instagram can be completely sufficient for that in some cases. In other cases, if I have a library that has a large collection of books with complexity in terms of how you need to categorize that and make that findable, you actually need a system for that. And there are a lot of examples that you can pluck out of the air where an information system has complexity and it might need to be digested by an API or other systems. So I think it's really just a matter of like, what's the use case? And Drupal does a really great job of being in that bridge layer when there is that level of complexity.
I totally
Yep.
agree.
And the
Uh,
website, when you go to Drupal, it says like I don't know the wording it uses, but it's basically like you're gonna be able to make your dreams come true or something, right? And it's
You'll
totally
find out,
that.
my friend.
It
That's only
is.
80% true. 80% of your dreams come true. Then you're like, wait a minute, what's this little 20% I got to deal with here? Oh, whoa.
Well, you could always
Whoa,
write
hold
your
on. It's breaking glass, project derailed. Oh, I'm kidding.
You could always, I mean, you could always, the way I looked at it is like if there's something I can't do with Drupal, I mean, they make it really easy to write your own stuff, right? So you really can do anything.
Mm.
I've seen a lot in my time. I can tell you that. Well, we are getting close to the end of time. I just want to call 12 minutes left, but there are a lot of folks on our call here. I think this has been a really great discussion. Kristen, you're clearly getting people hot about this topic.
Mm.
Um, and I've been to a lot of meetups. Sometimes they can be a little bit ho hum. I don't think this one was ho hum. I think you all brought something really great to this conversation. But since we're getting to the close, I have to ask, What's going on in everyone's lives? What are you doing? How are you getting to DrupalCon if you're going? Anything else that you want to promote?
I'm going to DrupalCon. I can't wait, man. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an interesting DrupalCon because this time it's not at a convention center.
That hotel.
In a hotel that we're staying in. So that's going to be kind of interesting. I'm excited for that. I'm super excited for the Business Summit Leaders Dinner, which Stephanie and I go to and I've gone to for the last 10 years. That's going to be extremely interesting this year. And I'm interested in the Dries Note. And we have a booth. I'm going to be a booth boy for like, not excited for that. That's one thing I'm not excited for, but whatever. I'm going to do it.
Gotta get a turntable up there.
Booth duty is not fun.
It's not
I'll be there, giving the talk and mentoring at Contribution Day. So the people who are going, hopefully you'll do some contribution. And on a sad note, I injured myself yesterday playing pickleball of all things. So I'm hoping
dangerous.
I
Like already.
heal. I know, it's such a dangerous. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So yeah, hopefully I will be well healed in the next couple of weeks so that I'm not groaning as I twist. But but it's been fun otherwise, other than the injury. And I'm taking a woodworking class too.
Oh, nice.
That's been fun. So
Wonderful.
trying to do some non-Drupal things for a change.
I have a
Always.
full wood shop in my garage actually.
Very nice.
Because I was going nuts. I'm like, I have to have something that's like real because like,
Yep.
code and Drupal and
Yep, screens all day long.
What about you, Mike? What have you been up to?
Oh, building that website. We just launched it last week. Mostly that, and then my eyes have been bothering me because I've been looking at screens. So now I have to figure out something to do that's not a screen. I don't know.
Where are
Maybe
you
go
located?
outside.
Are you in the Bay Area still, or are you up in
No, I'm in Portland.
Portland? Okay.
Yeah, I mean
Hopefully you
it's
got
gonna be
the
nice out soon, so soon there'll be
you got
nature.
the
You'll
blue
see the
light
sun.
glasses. Hopefully you got the blue light glasses.
Oh yeah. I got those. But just it's generally just staring at things right in front of my face that I should probably look into the distance a bit more.
Look out the window.
And I have very small dogs, so I'm always looking up close at them. Maybe I need a bigger dog that can watch farther off.
I've been in Lima, Peru for about 15 months now, but I'm originally from Oregon. So it's been really great to meet with you all tonight because I haven't really been in the company of a lot of people speaking English, and I'm not the best Spanish. Recently married, we're waiting on a spousal visa. So like I said, it's been about 15 months now. But
Do you
I
like
appreciate
Peru?
it.
What's it like to live there, man?
It's great here. Honestly, I'm in Lima, and I would recommend it to anybody if you ever want
Really?
to come. If you ever want to come visit, I'll take good care of you as long as I'm here, right? But I have a lot of family here. Me and my wife do some volunteering with the homeless and the church here.
That's awesome.
Just going out trying
Are you going to
to.
live there permanently?
I mean, I've got two children. One's graduating UGA probably this year in another month or so, but in computer science. And I need to get back. I mean, my wife hasn't met my family yet. My mom's sick, and I've already
I'm
talked to.
sending you a plane ticket. You're coming to Lima.
Hey, I mean, it's really is nice here. I haven't had any trouble from anybody.
That's
So
great. That sounds so interesting. Seriously. What about you, Andrew? Put you on the spot. What have you been up to?
Muted.
There you go.
Sorry.
I put you on the spot. I'm sorry. I figure why not? It's the end of the conversation. See who everybody is on this call.
Yeah. I'm not going to this DrupalCon, yeah, because I don't have a visa.
Where are you located?
uh, at the moment in Vancouver,
Oh, okay.
Vancouver, in Canada, but I have work visa and I cannot attend in any USA meetups or something like this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what do you do in Drupal, Landia?
Oh, at the moment, I'm working for PHSA. Maybe you heard about this company. We have a couple Drupal application, and yeah, I maintained this application and support this. But we still don't have this experience with Drupal 11. I still
Okay.
to try push our company, our management, our leader to implement some new stuff is Drupal 11. We on a Drupal 10,
Oh,
but yeah,
okay.
usually enterprise try to
I know.
keep version lower because some
Oh,
kind risky. Yeah.
I know. Like a lot of big enterprise Drupal 7 sites, they're like, nah,
Yeah, yeah,
get
yeah,
on Pantheon. Nah, I'm not gonna upgrade anything. It works
yeah.
fine.
You mentioned Drupal 7 sites on my background, on my original country. I still support, yeah, at least 3 or 4 Drupal 7 site, and I try to migrate it to Drupal 10,
You're
Drupal
like,
11, and it's
ah,
hard.
just leave it. It's fine. It works great. If anything happens, I'll fix it.
Yeah, yeah.
Ugh, that's awesome, dude. What about you, Sarah? We'll put you on the spot now.
My wife and I, we just moved to Bend.
Oh, cool.
We moved here for Oregon Adaptive Sports. Um, you can do anything. My
Mhm.
wife's an amputee and she's been able to go um, sit skiing. She's done mountain biking. She's
Wow.
done kayaking. It just opened a whole new world for us. So we've been here for all of a month and
Oh,
we are just loving the opportunity here. So,
that's awesome. That is
mhm.
absolutely awesome. Shelly, you want to say anything?
I've been in discovery sessions all week, so I'm a bit on the exhausted side and figured I'd just hop on in and say
What are you
hello and
discovering?
sorry.
What are you discovering?
Oh, discovering. Um, Starting a new project with
Oh,
a DEI client called Policy Link, based out of, I believe they've got offices in New York and San Francisco. They do a partnership with Stanford University actually and have a number of data sites with Stanford where we track all kinds of information about immigration and other things. So they are actually moving from Drupal 7 into Drupal 10 or 11. We have yet to figure out what we're going to put them in, but
oh yeah.
yeah, it's a new project we've got at ImageX, and I've got about 5 more discovery sessions in the next 2 weeks. So a lot of
Fun.
things to uncover. So exhausting, but also fun.
That's awesome. Eric, what about you? What have you been up to at Stanford?
Um, Not a lot. We have a new project we're working on because next year SSL certificates are going to like last 47 days or something. And I don't want to manually update hundreds of certificates, or then we have different like private, whether it's private cert, or so we're trying to put together how to figure out how to do that on like a very, 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 very large scale.
Fun.
So we don't have to worry about doing that. We are in the middle of organizing webcamp, so anybody that wants to do anything with that, sessions are open, submissions are open till April 11th. And I've been busy. Everybody at my house and in my life has been sick except for me, so I'm very tired taking care of everybody.
Well, congratulations for not being sick and being able to take care of everybody.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Sure, they appreciate all of
For
that.
sure.
Chad, let's wrap it up with you, man. What have you been up to?
Way too much. I've actually just recently joined the Chamber of Commerce here on Sunshine Coast, which is in British Columbia. Very beautiful place. If you folks haven't been here, it's worth going to. If you've been to Vancouver Island, it's better. I'm biased, but it's better. So I met the local mayor, met a few council people, and met our regional MP. We talked a lot about the Canadian tariffs and what Canada is actually doing for that, as well as some more internal issues, things like interprovincial trade, reducing the sort of barriers for products and services, as well as jobs moving between provinces. But my focus personally is there's a lot of concern here in Canada in terms of things like digital services, products, stuff like that. So I'm starting to look into not only helping small and medium-sized businesses shift some of their IT needs over to non-US based things, but potentially are there opportunities to make products and services that are Canadian based for folks. So I know that's not so much an interest for US folks, but if you want to help Canada, those are the sort of things that do help Canada, and they are certainly really important. I stood in front of a lot of these folks and I said, look, I'm a US citizen. And on behalf of the United States, I'm very sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
But I think a lot of people do understand that it is not something, I think Trudeau said it really, really well. It's not something where we're booing the national anthem because we don't like the US. We love the US. My wife and I moved here to Canada because we also love Canada. It's an and, not an or. So I think it's important to say we don't agree with what's happening right now because the US should be an ally. Canada should be an ally of the US. But in the meantime, it's important for self-preservation for countries like Canada and others to think about what their needs are. And it's really unfortunate that this is happening. So I like to try to find opportunity, not to step on the dead sort of thing, but rather find opportunity to pull together as a community, like we are here with Drupal, the same mentality locally. And I always encourage people when you have politics, think about your values and focus on the things that impact things locally because you make a huge difference locally. Trying to do something on a national level is like pulling your own teeth out. It's ludicrous. So I couldn't encourage that more. But thanks for queuing us up here, John. Anybody else have any parting words before we head on out?
If you're going to DrupalCon, look me up. I got a booth. I'll be standing there. You can just all you have to do is just walk by and I will be there. And if I'm not there, Stephanie will be there. And so I'll see you guys maybe at DrupalCon.
Have fun.
All right. Have fun in Cancun. Yeah.
Thank you.
Will do. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye. See you.